thus serving as the New York City's clerk, took pains to hide the city's records from capture or destruction. He placed them under the arch of the tomb of Frederick Van Cortlandt, his father, on Volt Hill, north of the house on the family's property on the mainland. It would remain there safely during the entire conflict. So this is one of the locations George Washington supposedly slept for a couple of nights, and this is Volt Hill, which is just north of the family's mansion across the parade ground. So if you climb this hill, you're going to see this these stone walls there. This was the crypt, and this is where the records were stored. The British fleet of 80 or 90 ships landed at the cove they finally landed at the cove near the eastern end of today's East Tremont Avenue at the dawn of October 12, 1776. After some hours unloading and preparing, the British regulars marched along the causeway, which is East Tremont Avenue, from Westchester Square all the way down to the Throgs Neck. The Americans, as instructed, ripped up the planks of the bridge over the Westchester Creek. When the British halted, the Delaware riflemen shot at the redcoats with deadly accuracy. Unable to maneuver on the narrow causeway over the swampy ground, the redcoats retreated back to the neck. There they stayed for a week and made schemes to land anew in today's Pelham Bay Park. But Washington now knew the British location and could make his own plans to save his army. Part of those plans was placing a small force in Eastchester, in today's Mount Vernon, to watch the approaches at Eastchester Bay. If anyone's familiar with White Castle, Westchester Square, well, as you walk in or you drive in, there's a plaque right there. It looks like a tombstone, but it's a history marker, and that's where this battle happened. So when you think of White Castle, think of the American effort being saved to fight for another day.
It's inside of the building?
No, it's outside, right?
It's right outside. As soon as you approach the parking lot, there's a small little gate, and if you look inside this gate, there's a historic marker there.
Isn't that for the first one?
On October 18, 1776, the British fleet, bearing 4,000 redcoats and German mercenaries, landed at the head of the inlet west of Rodman's Neck in today's Pelham Bay Park, to try to flanking maneuver. That part of the manor of Pelham was called Pell's Point. The only American to face them consisted of a small force Washington placed in Eastchester, a total of 750 men under the command of a fisherman from Marblehead, Massachusetts, Colonel John Glover. Glover spotted the British landing in his spyglass. The colonel, untrained in the military arts, took a deep breath and acted on his own. He moved his men down to the split rock in the northwestern corner of today's Pelham Bay Park. There he found a road flanked by stone walls over which the British would march. He sent one party farthest down the road, placing the men behind the wall on the left side, a second group near the Bronx-Westchester border behind the wall on the right side, and a third party still further down, back on the left side. When the British marched up on the road, with 30 yards of the foremost American, the first of Glover's unit unexpectedly popped up from behind its wall and fired, then withdrew to the rear unnoticed. Stunned, the redcoats fled in confusion before carefully and slowly resuming their march an hour and a half later. When they came within 50 yards of the second hidden American force, suddenly the unit rose from across the road and fired again. The British halted and returned musket fire and cannon shot for 7 rounds. The American units then retreated. The British soldiers shouted and chased the Americans. Without warning, the third unit popped up from behind its protective wall, keeping up a constant fire and causing the British to retreat several times. After 17 rounds were exchanged, Glover ordered an orderly retreat in the face of a larger British force. The British, however, thought it was they who faced a superior force. They encamped rather than continuing their march. This allowed Washington to save his army from the British trap. He withdrew his forces from Manhattan, except for Fort Washington and the Bronx, and regrouped at White Plains. Glover's 750 men fought an army of 4,000 redcoats. They enabled the American forces to remain in the field to fight another day.